Now, the other thing that happens in the real world is every time you adopt a policy, whether you think just because it works, or you think because it's consistent with your philosophy, or whatever, you adopt a policy, and as soon as you do that, around that policy congeals a set of interests which will protect that policy to its death. And those are ideological and those are economic interests that congeal around every policy. It's almost like the carrot cake for dessert. I love carrot cake, but I could almost feel the stuff congealing around my heart. And that's essentially what has happened on school choice, that the various interests that are well served either ideologically or economically have congealed around that policy as well. But the fundamental question is, whose responsibility is it to educate children? The families of those children? Is it their responsibility? Is it the responsibility of the state of Pennsylvania? How do you divide that responsibility? And who do you trust with that responsibility? I have to tell you about a moment. It's going to take you over your time. I was in an audience much less friendly than this, hard for you to believe, and I was invited to speak about school choice. And the tables had actually been purchased by some of whom were friends from the teachers union and from some other folks. And it was a great moment because the questions were wonderful. They were so incredibly angry and provocative. And I finally called on one lady over here, and she stood up and she was so enraged that she was having trouble getting the question out. And the question was, finally I said, let me frame the question for you. I said, isn't the question really whether or not you trust families with the well-being, with the education of their own children? And she said, yes, that's it exactly. And I don't. You don't believe that these people here, these people can make good decisions about their children's education? And I said, well, let me be clear about these people. Are you talking about the typical Philadelphian, row home, father has a high school degree, maybe the mother doesn't, maybe there's a history of alcoholism in the family, working class, that sort of thing? She said, exactly. So my reply was that, well, that's my family, and my brother and I are doing fine, thank you. That was the end of the debate. So I come from a background in which the decisions that I see being made among regular folks are, dare I say, equal to what I have seen in government.
And finally, what does the word reform mean to you, and is it really possible?
First of all, reform has lost its meaning because it is applied to every single piece of legislation. I've never seen any legislation that did not have the word reform on it. So it is a word that is almost devoid of meaning at this point. Second is that it is a mistake to think of this in absolute terms. Obviously, you want to eliminate corruption. That never happens. You want to eliminate self-dealing. That never fully happens. You want to eliminate the pursuit of interests that are less than the greater good. The important thing is not to think of reform as a solution, not to think of reform as a perfect kind of effort. The right way to think about this is that goals can be achieved, they are possible, nothing will ever be perfect, and everything is a choice. And when you make a choice, be prepared to live with the choices. For example, and let me offer a modest proposal here. Let's take the idea that the legislators have become the creature of special interests. Here's a modest proposal. Let's eliminate elected officials. I don't mean physically. I mean, let's do away with it. Are you comfortable with that? Are you okay with that? Should we have everybody appointed? No hands go up. Okay, well then you want them elected, and you want them elected in a competitive format, right? Okay, they're competing. Now, when people compete for office, here's a reform, should we make illegal all campaign contributions, including in-kind and including labor? How many people would support that idea? Why not? Why not just make campaign contributions illegal? Wouldn't we have eliminated the problem? Well, yeah, but no one could run for office unless they were willing to put themselves in the hands of third parties who would control their public identities by advertising and saying, here's who this person is, and here's who that person is. So that doesn't work, does it? Okay, so we opt for campaign contributions. Now, we've now put that legislator, that elected official, in the following position. Should that legislator give equal weight to every petitioner, regardless of whether that person supported him or opposed him or was out of the process altogether? Because if you adopt that egalitarian mode, what you've said is that nobody gets re-elected, right? On the other hand, if you say no, obviously, people that help you, you're going to be more responsive to their petitions than others. Oh my God, now we have a major moral crisis on our hands. But please, just make the choice. So I'm all in favor of anything that goes by the word of reform, as long as we ask two questions. Does it work, right? That's the first question. And are you prepared to live with the consequences of your decision? If the answer to those two questions is yes, let's do it. Thank you.
We'd like to thank Bob O'Donnell for joining us today. We have some momentum.